NCRP Productions presents the Fireside Chat series. Well, hi there, this is Barry, and I'm going to welcome you back to a Fireside Chat. I'm here with Pedro. Pedro, how you doing?
Hey, Barry, I'm doing great.
All right. Well, tonight, I'm going to actually hand the mic over to you. I tend to do all the jabbering usually as the lead, so I'm going to let you take over tonight. What do we got on the docket tonight?
All right, so first, Barry, I have a few things I wanted to talk about, kind of some things going on, some new stuff with NCRP Productions.
Oh, great.
And then what we want to do is get the lowdown on the convention you just went to.
DunDraCon 45. Yep, I just came back from that, still reeling from lack of sleep.
Perfect. Well, perfect in some ways, but not perfect for your lack of sleep.
No.
So first thing, I think we mentioned in our last Fireside Chat, we were doing some revamps on our Patreon. Did we mention that in our last one?
We did mention that we were going to.
So we are currently in the process of making some more. Just coming around, I would say coming around the corner, we have our Discord channel. I'm in the process of, making all the channels. Anybody who knows Discord, making the channels and categories and all that. And so that will be available for our second tier and up patrons on Patreon. And, just a place where you'll be able to come into, and, we have plans for what we're gonna eventually do, but, a basic place you can come in, ask us questions, chat with other fans about the show, just a fun little place to hang.
Okay, and you're gonna teach people like me who are Luddites and don't know what the heck Discord really is, you're gonna teach me how to play on there so I can go talk to people?
I will do my best to make some instructions, yeah.
All right. Well, good. I'm excited.
There's bots to automate a lot of things.
Oh, dear God. Discord, here we come. Yeah. NCRP bots.
The other thing coming to our Patreon here soon, hoping within the next week, is the Honey Heist Pdf.
Boy.
Yes, so we have it all collected. We've had, I've sent it out to a few people, do some proofreading, see what they think. I'm getting some good feedback, which is nice. And I think it's just about ready. Even sending it out just the other day, I noticed one thing that I missed, and I'm like, damn.
You do realize that part of my history was editing magazines. You never sent me a copy.
Didn't I? Did I?
Not yet.
Oh. Well then,
this is how tight working here at NCRP Productions is.
Well then, I'll get you a copy.
All right, good.
I'll have my people call your people. So then another thing coming, we had recently advertised on the Patreon, and this one is in the process still, but I'm going to be putting out soon some examples. We're working on our deck of playing cards.
Right.
Yes, so the general idea is we're going to go with a deck of playing cards with multiple suits, and the suits aren't going to be your traditional heart and diamond and all that. They're going to be different seasons. So you might have the alien suit, or you might have the Shadowrun suit, or something in the shadows.
Okay.
That's my grand idea.
Okay.
And I actually today made some mock-ups I'll show you in a little bit, and did a test print, which was fun.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that, and I'm hoping to include some rules for a game eventually to play with them as well, but we'll get into that whenever we do.
I gotcha. Okay, and this is going to be on which tier for Patreon?
So this one is going to be our $5 tier level, which is our third tier from the bottom
up.
Oh,
perfect. Okay.
And that's the Seegson Employee of the Year, $21.79 tier, and that one will have access to the images. Once they're all done, we're going to be releasing them in sets, so for you to be able to print and play.
Perfect. Okay. All right.
Okay, and the last thing is that I'm really excited about is that we are currently starting, we being Sequoia and I, we are going to be starting on editing the Into the Woods, Welcome to Point Pleasant.
Right.
Mothman Dread game.
Our
so
Dread game.
I think we mentioned this on the last one as well, but we did do a Dread game that was for Halloween, right?
I think so.
Was it for Halloween?
It all blends together so horribly.
Sometimes things get a little backlogged with the editing. So we're going to be starting to edit that and get that put out. Very excited.
And we're doing that. You're going to get to see that on the B-sides, right?
That is going to be, yes, on the B-side. Thank you.
So again, Patreon. Now,
yes.
For the B-sides, what level do they have access for those?
See, now that's easy. B-side is our very first tier, and that is the $1 level.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Okay. For $1, you can listen to all our B-sides.
Yes.
And we had talked about the possibility of starting to do some of the getting ready banter. I have people who've asked, and we've mentioned this before a couple of times. I've had people who've asked, you've had people who've asked, who ask us, do you guys prep? Do you program? Do you write the stories? Many of the people who are podcasting out there, many of the professionals, spend hours pretty much writing their entire script. So we can show you. You can listen to the kind of stuff that goes on before the games that we play. We're going to put them out there on the B-sides. We're not going to load it down, but we're going to put a few of these out there just to give you kind of a feel for what goes on beforehand. They will be suitably edited because every so often there are things that probably shouldn't appear, but we will be putting those out as well, right? We were thinking about doing those on the B-sides, and those also are going to be available then at the lowest tier, the $1 tier. Boy, that doesn't tell. Our first tier. I'm not going to say lowest tier ever again.
Yes, first tier for Jimmy.
There we go. For Jimmy.
Yes. All right, excellent. So that's kind of some things coming out, things to look forward to. Now, let's go ahead and get to what I'm very excited about, the con lowdown. Okay, so go ahead, Barry. What I want to hear about first is what con, go ahead and repeat what con you went to, and then tell me a little bit about it, because I don't honestly know much about it, and let's give the folks at home something too.
Well, DunDraCon 45, so this is the 45th year they've been doing DunDraCon. My understanding is they missed a year or two, so this might actually be their 47th year, but I don't want to speak too far out of turn because I'm uncertain. This convention is the Bay Area role-playing game convention. If you look at the name, DunDraCon, Dungeons and Dragons Convention, it has been going the greater portion of how long we've had D&D in existence. This convention, when I started going, oh boy, it must have been in 84 or 85. It was at one of the Oakland airport hotels. I want to say it was the Oakland Hyatt, but I could be very, very wrong. It moved for many, many years into San Ramon, and just over the last couple of years, it's moved out to Santa Clara. It was at the Santa Clara Marriott, right by Marriott's Great America, right over by the Niners Stadium as well. And the way I look at it, the way I would tell people is this is the role-playing convention for the middle of the state West Coast. So the San Francisco Bay Area role-playing convention, there are a number of conventions that have been going over the years. I just found out at DunDraCon that Pacificon, another long-running one, is still going. And when I talk to people asking questions, because I thought it had died, when I was asking people questions about it, most people think of Pacificon as the wargaming and board game convention. And then there's also another one, KublaCon, which has been going pretty much as long as Magic's been going, and most people consider that to be the Magic the Gathering convention out here. However, I will say this, I know a tremendous number of LARPers that live their entire year to go to Kubla because the LARPing is huge there. So, and most of these conventions, actually I think all three of these conventions are tailored to nothing. So you can role play, you can do board games, you can do miniature games. There's usually an anime room. So just a big collection of, dare I say it, nerdy, yes, I'm a nerd, nerdy things all in one space. Most of them have a dealer's room. DunDraCon has always had one. And then they flip-flop between a few other things that appear. But that's this convention, and that's the one that I just came back from.
Okay, now, so you'd say this one definitely more role-playing heavy then?
I would say DunDraCon is and let's no longer compare it to anything else. I look at DunDraCon as being a role-playing convention. Yes, they have monster Warhammer battles down there. There were a tremendous number of board games this year. But really, when I think of going to a con, and I'm thinking of DunDraCon, I'm going down there to role-play.
Okay, awesome. So now, did you play or run any games?
I did not run any games. This was very much a last-minute thing. It just so happened that a confluence of many events happened. In short, I'll make them quick. I had to go see my CPA. I was expecting to see my brother and my nephews. I needed to go to a distributor and pick up supplies. Oh, and DunDraCon was right in the middle of it, so I thought, what the heck? So that was what got me down there. It was not really a planned thing. So I had nothing prepped. I did bring down a Gamma World first edition book to potentially run if it got there, but it never got there. I'll tell you as we go along what we did play, and you'll see why I got out of having to run anything.
Okay.
But I did play in some games down there, yes.
Yeah, I want to hear about that. Yeah, let's start with some games.
Well, so let's hit you with the games. On Friday evening, we played in an Arduin game. Now, Arduin has pretty much been gone from everyone's mind for quite a few years. Dave Hargrave, and boy, if I butcher the entire history, I learned at this convention and then talking to a company called Emperor's Choice that so much of the stuff that I had been told was fact may not have been completely factual.
Huh.
So Dave Hargrave produced a game system called Arduin. He did it in the digest style, saddle staple, fold over, 8.5 by 11 booklet created by folding it in half. And he had originally 3 books. These 3 books, they emulated the Player's Handbook, DM's Guide, and Monster Manual, but they were not that by any means. And this was, for me, I realize this is going to be blasphemous to all the Arduin people out there, but to me it felt like it was always a skin for Dungeons & Dragons, but because at that point TSR was litigious to the extreme, and I don't think I'm stepping on any toes admitting that, I think that they were looking for a way to not get in trouble while being able to produce Dave's game. And it had a huge following. It has a major following. If you go search for it, Arduin, Arduin, you will see that there are a lot of fan sites. There are tons of forums. There are not as many as I was to learn speaking with the company Emperor's Choice, who currently owns the Arduin licenses and the worlds and everything connected. Everything Arduin is theirs now. So a number of sites were shut down that were basically giving away the product for free and bypassing license rights. But Arduin is old school. When you talk old school, this one predates the hardback Player's Handbook, DM's Guide, and Monster Manual for first edition.
I'm surprised I'd never heard of it. Like I had never, and when you messaged me, briefly about what you did actually tell me, because you were really tight-lipped about what you were doing.
Well, I wanted you to. I wanted you to get to enjoy it. I was telling you.
Honestly, it's better for it. But I had no idea what that was. I'd never even heard anything about it.
Well,
so.
it's the history. I would stand clear of really telling you a whole lot. There were 3 books originally. They did books 4 through 8 as well. The original 3 books, I don't know who the producer was. I think it was Hargrave himself. There was a company called Dragon Tree that produced the next books 4 through 8. A whole bunch of crazy stuff happened there. There was a series called The Complete Arduin that was put out by Mark Scheinert. There are a couple other versions, and Emperor's Choice is doing, from what I understand, hopefully I got this right, is going to be doing Arduin Bloody Arduin, which will be the most current final for now edition. I'm not really sure. But we sat down and we played, and I have a number of friends that got to play with Dave Hargrave when he was still alive, and they just told me these outlandish stories. I never really got to play. From the history, if you've been listening to our Fireside chats, that though I love fantasy in general, I'm not a big fantasy role player. I tend towards science fiction and mostly post-apocalypse. So I missed a lot of the Arduin stuff. But I had been told these crazy stories. So we sit down. It was Dave from our podcast, Dave, who plays with us for Aliens and does a lot of our one-shots. The 2 of us sat down expecting to be in a game of 7 that showed the 2 of us. And later a young man who ran in and said, "I'm sorry I'm late. I can't be here for another 2 hours, but if you guys are okay with it, I'll come back." So the majority of the game was Dave and I playing. And it was crazy. The guy who ran it really knew Arduin, but he knew it at this level to where we were playing with an amalgamation of a whole bunch of different systems. So he had some stuff from the Complete, and he had some stuff that was the original. He had some stuff from the new books that Emperor's Choice had been putting out. And it just,
So somebody who had played Arduin and followed it, a mega fan would have probably...
Oh, they would have understood everything.
Would have got okay.
So I was playing a Cobbit, which, if I understand correctly, is when a kobold boy meets a hobbit girl. You get where this goes?
Okay, all right.
So I was playing a Cobbit, and this is how crazy this system was. If memory serves, my Cobbit was 7th level. I was playing with Dave. I can't tell you what he was. He was some form of a magic caster. He was 15th level, right? We were running together. The third person who joined us for basically an hour and a half at the tail end, he was something called a Star Mage, which is ludicrously powerful, and I want to say he was 21st level. So this is the group running together. and it was absolutely nuts, the things that we did, the places that we went, the things that we encountered. I would say, if you were playing in an MC Escher painting, you would mostly have an understanding of how little I understood. But I had a great time. I would love to play Arduin again with another person like our game master who knows it that well, because maybe just a little more would get hammered through my thick skull.
Yeah, I could see that being fun, just like really starting from a place of nowhere and then just be like, well, take me through this world.
Right, take me through this world. And oh, by the way, I'm 15th level.
Yeah. I just blindly started killing things and leveled up. I don't know where I'm at. Okay, awesome. So there's one game. Any other?
So was Arduin. That was Friday evening. Let's see here. Saturday evening, I got into a Dark Heresy game. Now, this is the Fantasy Flight. No, this is not the new one. That's Wrath and Glory.
Oh.
And we had Josh run Wrath and Glory for us. This was the edition before that. This was the one that was put out by Fantasy Flight Games. And my understanding is Dark Heresy was the Inquisition setting. So we had amongst us, we had a couple Inquisitors. I was a witch hunter with psi skills. But it was another one for me, like Arduin. Like, I'm reading my character sheet, and then I'm kind of peeking at people around me's character sheets, and we're at such insanely different abilities. I had an ability with my psionics where I could light on fire everybody within visual range. Line of sight, and boom, in one shot, you're all on fire. The way I understood it from the Game Master, effectively it was a cantrip. I could do it every round. Right? Like I said, it was an interesting collection of games I played in. We had amongst the group, and this was a full game, this had the full 7. We had an interesting group of people. We had people that knew the history and the storylines. You know, I'm like, so what does this do? And bang, I've got 3 people telling me, you know, what book it came out of and what war it was used to fight in and when it was made popular and also in the miniature game, how you could use it. And, you know, that was 3rd edition and they didn't do that till 5th edition. So there were people really, really into it. And then there was little old me who knows what Warhammer 40K is and is impressed as heck with the beauty of the sculpts and the amazing artwork and the incredible storyline behind it, but no real deep understanding. So I pretty much was kind of just drug along as we landed on the planet and we met up with this band. And this band is basically the Blue Man Group of the Millennium. And they were saying that they felt that there was a group that was using chaos to play their music. And we were supposed to investigate this chaos overreach in the way we were doing it. And again, I know the Game Master knew what he was doing and knew the system backward and forward, but I was pretty much just drug along. And we succeeded. We found the guy. He was a one-man band. And what we found out is that there were too many music tracks, too many vocal tracks. Apparently, in the 41st millennium, the Emperor has said that you may only use 4 mixing tracks to produce any music. And there were far too many voices laid over each other for it to be a legal mix. That was what we followed up on. thank God there were witch hunters and inquisitors doing the job to find out that this one-man band actually ended up being a mutant with multiple faces on him. So he was using the legal 4 tracks. He was just doing it illegally as a warped mutant creature with more than one voice. So that was the second game.
I'm pretty speechless on, like, I have a lot of questions, but I'm like, you could tell me right now. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'd be like, all right. I mean, it all sounded just as believable.
Oh my gosh! So that was our Saturday evening one, and then Sunday evening. So I'll step back and I will let you know that the conventions, a lot of them do this, and DunDraCon is no stranger to this. They have people put in ahead of time to run a game. So I say, hey, I'm going to run a Magical Kitties game. I'm accepting up to blank number of players. Let's say I'm going to accept up to 6 players. I set up the slot time. I think it's going to be 4, 6, 8 hours. And they give me a time slot. Hey, we're going to have you start at Saturday at 8 in the morning. And then you show up as a player, you ask to be in one of these games, and then priorities will come through and you'll get slotted into different games. And if you don't make one, you generally make another. There's the ability to crash a game. You step in because people don't show up. They get caught wherever in the tub, I don't know, and they don't make it to the game, and you can sometimes sit in. Actually, one of the people that I went down with was able to sit in on a Fading Sun game, was able to crash a Fading Suns game, which I didn't get into, and I was very hopeful I was. That's the new Ulysses Spiel one, which I'd really like to try. So when I got there, I spoke with one of the people that's been involved with DunDraCon pretty much the entire time, from what I understood, and what he had told me is a large number of the games the game masters had backed out. When we got down there, Santa Clara, we just recently here in California had the mask restriction removed. Santa Clara, the county that we were in, still has a full mask restriction. And then a number of people, being conscientious people, said, hey, I'm not feeling well, I'm not going to show. And they forewarned that their games were going to be canceled. Well, it turned out that the vast majority of the games that I wanted to get into had been canceled, including, sadly, all the Alien games.
Oh, man.
So, Sunday night, we lucked out. We went down with Dave. And for people who follow the podcast, you'll know that Dave has run 2 one-shots for us in Alien. So we got a group together. We had a few people that we knew, a few people we didn't know, kind of met in, this is going to sound funny, but it was a nice space, in a hallway with a table, and we played Alien. Had a really fun time. For my game, I've always been very against the kid character. I think it would be very hard to run, and I don't want to take the time to figure out how it would run. But for the game that we played, we had a kid, and the guy who played it, shout out to Dennis, did such an exceptional job at it. I would consider, this is how good he did, I would consider in the future possibly letting a kid play my game. But that was the Sunday night game. So I got to play each of the evenings. I got to play something. That was not a con-sponsored game. That was a free game. But those happen. One of the nice things at DunDraCon is they have a number of rooms where you can go in, take over a table, put up a players wanted sign, and you can run something. As long as you get enough players to play, you've got a game for as long as you want to run. Yeah. And the convention runs 24 hours. They don't close up the rooms. So if I got out of my game that started at 6 in the evening and ended at midnight and wanted to go game later and found some players, I could literally game the entire 72 plus hours that the convention runs. And I feel like it, as tired as I was, that's what I did.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, that sounds great. You not only got some sanctioned game, but you got an unsanctioned game.
There you go. It was unsanctioned without a doubt.
Cool. Now, so we got some cool game insights. Now, tell us about some of the booths that you saw, some highlights. So I'm interested in what are some of your highlights, and then afterwards, I got some more detailed questions.
Okay, so highlights at the convention. Is the hot tub being so chlorinated that when I got out, I literally felt like I had crystals growing off me from chlorine? Is that a highlight? Oh,
It's interesting.
I only went in the hot tub one time, and I really, honestly, I feel like, when you do the science experiment where you throw the water in and you throw the mixture in and you throw the crystals in and suddenly the crystal kind of grows. I got out of that hot tub and I felt like I have spikes growing off of my back of chlorine just pouring out of my pores. 3 days later, my back was still itching from the chlorine.
Oh my gosh, I'm itching now thinking about it.
So I don't know if that's actually, that was Thursday night. I don't know if that's actually one. DunDraCon normally has a dealer's room. And the dealer's room, because this convention falls generally President's Day weekend out here in the Bay Area, or out there in the Bay Area since we're in a different Bay Area, since it falls there don't tend to be a lot of game companies that are releasing new product. That tends to be Gen Con and Origins and some of the later ones. So really it was a chance to just see a few of the local companies that showed up. So Goodman Games, one of the companies that I love because they were producing Metamorphosis Alpha, they were there. The actual company is based in Santa Clara. They were there. Chessex always has a booth there. I don't know if there were any Chessex official people there. Normally there are, but the Chessex booth was there. Beyond that, there wasn't anyone else there who was a company. Artalsorian, Mike Pondsmith's company, they used to show up, but because he doesn't live in the Bay Area anymore, that makes sense. And Chaosium also used to be a Bay Area-based company, and I'm not certain where they're set. They may still be down there. They also didn't have an appearance there, which is not to say that the games weren't there, just as a table. This dealer's room had the most, I'm going to call it tchotchkes, that I have ever seen at any convention that is called a gaming convention. There were people selling earrings, book bags, T-shirts, crystals.
All D&D related, though.
Ish.
Oh.
Somebody was selling, are you ready for this? Critical Role bar soap. There's a part of me that wants to be insulted for those people that don't bathe regularly, that look and say, whoa, you're trying to sell me a bar of soap? But Critical Role bar soap. I don't know. I hope they had the legal license to sell it.
Okay. All right, well, that, anything else that stood out in the booths? Because my other question was there any, pre-release or upcoming games? But
Well,
it sounds
all right,
like...
so I've canned that one for you already.
Yeah.
Well, so for the booths, I went down there. We are playing, not on the podcast, we are playing a D&D game, and I have one of the players who is running a Herongon, which apparently is a rabbit person, which is out of the new Witchlight book for D&D. Had never heard of a Herongon. There are 2 Herongon figures that are out there that aren't in the Critical Role multi-million-dollar pack of figures. So I went looking for those, and I was able to find it. There was a group there that were specializing in the blind box miniatures being opened and your ability to kind of pick the figure. So I was able to find those. That was exciting. There was a group there that had Dent and Ding, which is things that come through the distributors and to larger warehouses where there's a small scratch or a dented corner, and they have their stuff discounted. There's a guy there who had board games. I will say this, for a role-playing convention, there was an unseemly amount of board games. The majority of the dealer's room that wasn't tchotchkes was board games. The board game rooms tended to have more people in them than the free RPG gaming rooms. The flea market, which we went to, almost every table was board games. And then the auction that we went to, this is the first time that DunDraCon has had an auction, the auction that we went to was almost exclusively board games. So it was a very, very interesting thing. I know for my store, board games have tailed down a little bit, except for those exceptional ones like Wingspan and Root and Dune Imperium. And on that note, I will tell you, for me, for what I saw, Dune Imperium appeared to be the board game of choice at DunDraCon 45. I saw more games of that by double than any other game that was there.
Is that its own, or is that one Imperium, that game that takes like 6 hours
No,
No,
it's not Twilight Imperium.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
No, this is Dune Imperium. It's a newer game. I believe the company that makes it is Legendary. And oh my God, if it's not, I'm so sorry that I'm saying it, but your game is fantastic. It is a worker placement and deck building game put together. So you play both components at the same time. It's an amazing strategy game. We played a number of times, and almost every time the person who is in last for the first 3 or 4 rounds ends up winning. So it's a neat thing where you can slingshot yourself if you're doing the right things early on or even later on. I enjoy it very much, but that seemed to be the board game of choice there. Other highlights, the auction was fun. I was able to get a large, and when I say large, a near complete GDW Traveler set. That is all the books, all the Journal of Traveler's Aid Society, all the adventures, all the double adventures, all the alien modules, just on and on and on. It was so much fun stepping back into something that I had done and played with years ago, and I probably spent a little too much on it, but you know, it's one of those things where you think nostalgia, wow, this is amazing. What other highlights did we have down there?
You're kind of following along on my next question, too, is if you got any merch while you were down there.
All right, so merch that I got while I was down there. Well, I've already told you about the Traveler, and I told you about the Harengon figures. In addition to that, I got a couple of odds and end dice from there. Chessex had a DunDraCon 45 commemorative die. Dave picked up one of those. I'm trying to think, did I pick up anything else? I think that was it. I had to control myself. We were down there in my small car, and Dave went crazy buying board games. When we were getting ready to pack the car, he had roughly 5 feet tall of board games that we had to stick in there, in addition to my large box of Traveler items and everything else that we came down with. So it was a very tight ride going home. But no, aside from that, not a whole lot of other things. And that's normal for me. It has to be something surprising or exceptional or weird for me to generally bring it back from a con, because I usually try and go as light as possible and come back as light as possible.
Yeah, I'm sure that's good for a few reasons, wallet included. But so I think maybe I just had a misconception. I haven't been to any other cons except for the one that we had here.
Right.
And so in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, some of the bigger ones, you know, the booths with, you know, like, was it Gen Con, I guess.
Right.
You know, in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is another Gen Con. You know, we have big booths with all the companies showing off the new stuff.
Right. Well, and DunDraCon has a lot of the feel of the larger conventions. It's just not at the time period where people, and I don't know if it's Gen Con is the time you release. It probably is this. Gen Con is the time you release because Gen Con is the biggest gaming convention. Or if it's the fact that everyone was starting to release at that time regularly because that's the lead into Christmas. And so that's a perfect time to release to get people buying. Yeah. I'm not sure how it goes. DunDraCon falling where it is, coming right out of the end of the year. Everybody's worrying about their stock levels. Everyone's looking at taxes. Most people have not gotten their tax returns back yet. I don't know that it's a release like that, but they do have normally, and they did this year again, panels where you get people will talk to you about all kinds of different things. We had Ken Hite there, one of my favorite authors, and he was talking about all the things that he knows really well, which is alternate history stuff. In addition to that, you'll get people that will talk to you about how to produce a role-playing game, how to get seen by larger companies if you want to sell your game to a bigger company. There was one on world building. There was one on planet building. So you have all these different seminars. You have an anime room where you can see anime pretty much 24/7 there. There is normally, and this year was no exception, an SCA group there showing the weaponry, talking about the SCA, the Society for Creative Anachronism, if anyone doesn't know what the SCA is. There were some other demos that were there. This year, I hadn't seen it previously, they had a painting room where you literally could go in, use their paints and their brushes and paint miniatures and have people that could kind of help you with, or you're doing this wrong, or maybe not that. Maybe it's you're doing this, and maybe there's another way to do it. There's really no wrong way to paint a miniature, I think. So
I gotta say, I do like the idea of like them just walking by, swatting it, and being like, "No, that's wrong." Dunk it in paint thinner and say,
right,
do it
start again. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is a big convention on a smaller scale currently. I think COVID harmed it a lot over the last 2 years. I think COVID did it a disservice this year because the numbers of people didn't show, but I think it's going to grow back. The new convention center appears to be much larger than the one we were at in San Ramon. And so I'm excited to see what happens over the next few years with DunDraCon.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure once whatever it looks like, this is all under control. That it's gonna, whatever the year is after that, that's gonna be the boom where everyone's like, we gotta get out. I gotta go.
We gotta go.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last thing I'm curious about is, did you find any inspiration there that made you say, hey, I want to run this, or this gives me a great idea to run a system, a game? Did you find anything that really struck you?
I don't know if I can pin it to something, meaning I saw someone or I heard someone. It's nothing like that. While I was down there, I was immersed in it. I was around people who were talking about role-playing and talking about board games and just gaming in general, everything but video games, although there was a little bit of talk of that. You don't hear it as much there, thankfully, because I hear it everywhere else. And it was nice to be immersed in that. And coming back on the drive home, it's a substantial drive for us, a good 6 hours plus. I started thinking about things that maybe I would run for the podcast and just things in general that I wanted to do in the near future. And so I'll throw them out there. I'm going to let the podcast listeners know this is not me saying I'm going to do this. This is me saying these things came up. Dark Sun came up quite a number of times for us. And if we cannot get Matt from the Unhallowed game to run it, there is a possibility that I might consider running a Dark Sun game.
We've talked about Dark Sun for a long time.
I know. But it came up again. Metamorphosis Alpha, which is the precursor to Gamma World, that came up a number of times. And with Goodman Games there and seeing their stuff and just remembering the last time I got to speak with Jim Ward, the writer of Metamorphosis Alpha and my game Gamma World, I thought, boy, it would be kind of fun to do that. Insane thing came up. Dave got in the flea market a beautiful copy of the TSR Advanced Marvel Superheroes game.
The old.
Yep.
I love
that.
Look,
appears to be complete. The charts are in immaculate condition. Now, I'm not saying I was going to run it, but it did make me think that would be kind of fun if someone in the group chose to run it. What else? I because I had brought the Gamma World book down, and all I brought was a backpack, dice, paper, pencils, and I really thought I was going to end up running a Gamma World game, and I thought, you know what? I might be excited to do that. So, listeners, if you are interested in seeing a Gamma World game run for the podcast, let us know. It's been banging around in the back of my head for quite a while. So, beyond that, just the fact that gaming is still going. That COVID didn't crush it, and just the fact that we weren't able to see each other and be together didn't crush it. It really did my heart good being at that convention. And oddly, it's the first time in a very, very long time, maybe 24 years or more, since I haven't gone down there as a retailer, but went down there just as somebody going to the convention to play games.
There you go. And I bet it felt better. I mean, maybe better in different ways.
It was different. It was very different. There were a number of times where I walked around the retailer's lounge and thought, am I in the right side of this?
You got
just
the
because
retailer's
I've been there
itch.
for so long.
Do you want to go back in there and start selling some stuff?
Well, I wanted to go in there and tell them what they were doing wrong, but...
Well, awesome. Okay, that's great. I think we got a lot of great info for people who haven't been to a con either before or in a while.
And I'm going to tell you, listeners, we're going to get Pedro down to one.
Oh,
for sure. It may not be this year, although we have some ideas for this year. But we've got to get him to one. He's got to get a chance to feel this. The gaming pulse is pretty much at any one of these conventions. It doesn't matter which one you go to. You'll get that feel. Something good is always going to come out of one of these. And I think you need that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Especially after these past couple of years. Well, Barry, thank you again. It's always a good time. And
absolutely.
For our listeners, thank you as well, and have a great night.
Yep, this is Barry signing off.
And Pedro, too.
All right, have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to another NCRP Productions podcast. To stay on top of everything we're doing, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and like us on Facebook, all at NCRP Productions. You can show your support and help us continue to produce content by joining our Patreon. We offer additional podcasts like our B-Sides and have GM materials, maps, and other fun things you can discover over time. You can find our podcasts on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google, and many other fine podcast sites. Just look for us at NCRP Productions. We value your thoughts, so please don't hesitate to leave us feedback or comments. And if you would like to contact us directly, you can email us at ncrpproductions@gmail.com.